Hi, my name is Kieran Kenny. I am an Aftercare worker with Don Bosco Care and chairperson of the Irish Aftercare Network. I'm delighted to be here today in the Sheraton Hotel in Athlone for our annual conference, Working with Trauma. Currently there are over 6,000 young people living in state care, with 500 or so of those transitioning on a yearly basis from care onto aftercare. While most of these young people make a really smooth transition, there is a cohort of young people that are really struggling with trauma. Issues around separation and loss, family breakdown, and an uncertainty in their future is hugely inhibiting them in taking that next step. And ultimately, the coming together and joined up thinking approach of all those working with such vulnerable young people can only lead to better outcomes, which is ultimately what will always be the number one aim of those of us within the Irish Aftercare Network.
Young care leavers have experienced huge separation and loss, especially from the trauma of coming into care initially. And they may have experienced other traumas such as sexual violence, sexual exploitation, homelessness. We try and work through this with them as best we can.
Neil Forsyth from the Irish Aftercare Network. It's important that the Minister understands that the legislation and policy currently in place is completely inadequate, and workers are struggling every day to support this most vulnerable group in society.
I think the work that you do is hugely important. I think it's phenomenal that we've seen the kinds of conversations that you're happening within the context of that work. I think it's a really good example of an approach in Ireland that's really changed how we think about doing this kind of work. And to see you put such a focus on working with trauma in all of its contexts, in all of the ways that that impacts upon your work, I think is hugely inspiring. So congratulations to you for doing that. The idea that still a young person, any young person could be leaving care and find themselves entirely homeless is just shocking. Recognising that the state's role is to be in loco parentis, the state's role is to be the loving parent. It says it itself in policy terms. And no loving parent casts out a child when they reach 18.
We have to evaluate behaviour without judging the motivations for that behaviour. Behaviour is telling us something. It's not the problem itself, it is a symptom of the problem. And if in doubt, go to A&E. Acceptance and empathy. I still wouldn't have been anywhere near ready to function at 18. And yet we take the children who are least likely to be able to function, we say, off you go now. And also we attend to chronological age when actually developmental age is what we should be looking at. I might be 18 on my birth cert, I might be 9 internally and emotionally, and you're turfing me out into the world.
The more that we can build relationship with the people who come to us, the more the resilience and the strengths come out. Because trauma-informed practice is not just for therapists.
Trauma runs through so much of the work and the practice that aftercare workers do, so it's really excellent to see a conference focused on this topic, not just to help understand the impact of trauma that young people might have experienced, but also to think about self-care and how aftercare workers can kind of manage that in terms of their own well-being.
Well, in human rights terms, the state has particular obligations and can and should prioritise especially marginalised groups. And there can be no more marginalised group, in my view, than young people in care or young people leaving care.
It is actually Mary's last conference. It's going to be a huge boost to fill.
It's been a really great conference. We enjoyed so much putting it together. Huge thanks to everybody. It was great working with everybody, and I'll keep in touch just to say it's in good hands with Yvonne.